Join us. A few more in here. We are recording this session. It's 10:45. We're going to get started. My name is Kathy Sexton. Thank you all for joining us today. We do have our two presenters here. Hopefully you can see their faces, and we have a lot to cover today, so we're going to jump in pretty fast. Do want to welcome Suzanne Loomis and Alangurli from PEC. Thank you both for joining us and for presenting us with information that's going to be useful to all of us. We do have lots of people registered today, and I'm sure a few more will join in. This is a program sponsored by the Local Government Network at Wichita State University. That's a group of mostly cities, but about 30 cities and about 5 counties, mostly in central Kansas, but also around the state. We have at least 7 LGN cities represented today, as well as 6 guest cities. And we have a whole bunch of city clerks who are joining us today through our CCMFOA, City Clerks and Municipal Finance Officers Association, also managed through Wichita State University. So please check the chat. If you have any questions as Fo and Suzanne are talking, they're going to try to take your questions at the end. But if you think of questions as they're talking, please put them in the chat so you don't forget them, and so that they will monitor that and make sure they respond to those at the end. We are recording and intend to send the program out. I don't know how rapidly we'll send it out, but we will send it out via email to everyone who's registered. If you are a licensed civil engineer and you want your continuing education kind of credits, your PDH credit, if you did not receive an email from me about this, please drop your name in the chat, your email address, so that we can make sure we can get that to you. But I sent an email to several of you that I knew were engineers, but there might be more of you that I don't know. So please add that. If you think of other questions, put them in the chat and I'll respond actively to that. Otherwise, I think we're ready to go. Fo, are you ready?
I am ready.
Yeah. Excellent. Please go right on ahead and get us started today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us. Again, my name is Alangurli with PEC, joined by Suzanne Loomis with PEC as well. And I'll turn it over to Suzanne. She will take the first section of this presentation. So.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I worked for the public sector for 33 years before I came on board with PEC. I was 28 years for the city of Newton. And every time that we had a change in the city commission, inevitably something would come up about the MUTCD. And we'd have a conversation and we have to talk about what is the MUTCD. And the way that I would explain it to the elected officials and, city managers that were unfamiliar was, this is the traffic control Bible. And this Bible is huge and it gives you all of the things that you should do and some things that you should not do. And the manual, back in the day is about 4 to 5 inches thick, and I'd bring it into a commission meeting and show people, hey, this is this thing. Now,
but it didn't sound like it was official yet.
Now we have more things that are online, and that's good because there's a lot of pages. We've got somebody that needs to mute.
Yes.
I'm hearing some feedback. Okay, thank you. We are going to be touching on just a few of the issues. We're just barely going to scrape the surface today, going through this MUTCD, and we want to make sure that you get a good flavor for what's happening with the changes, because there's an update every so often. And PEC is a multidiscipline firm, and we have offices in multiple states, and 2 of our specific groups, our highway group and our municipal transportation group, have traffic staff that are well versed in all of the traffic items that will come up in the MUTCD. There are states have to update and have to accept and adopt the update to the MUTCD, and they are required to do that by January 18th of 2026. And PEC and GBA, both firms have been hired by the state of Kansas, by KDOT, and they are doing some a lot of review of what the feds provided on the federal MUTCD. And they are looking through everything, and both of these organizations provided a summary to KDOT about the updates. And this is pretty important because when you are somebody that deals with traffic control, you need to know what those changes are. There are oftentimes supplements to what the state approves as the state approved MUTCD. And when PEC and GBA look through all of the federal version, then they give a summary to KDOT and how this is going to impact things in the state. And currently, we are on phase 2. There were a bunch of meetings. Everybody gets together and looks at what the summary was, and now they are updating KDOT standards so that they are in compliance with this new 11th edition of the MUTCD. In this document, if you've never looked at it, there's a whole bunch of shalls and shoulds, kind of like a Bible. And, you must do this, you shall do that, you shall not do that. When the state approves the version of the MUTCD, they are not allowed to negate any of the shalls or shoulds. So it's very similar in that analogy if you are a biblical person and you would follow that. What's new in the MUTCD? There's so many things that would come up as new, and I'm going to try and touch on just a couple of these things that gives you some feel. The 85th percentile is something that has been talked about for years, and when everybody wants to have a change in a speed limit somewhere, typically you'll hear that on highways that are running through towns. That maybe some of you are working in. You say, hey, we really wish the speed limit was lower here. And in the past, it was always, if 85% of the people were driving the speed, then they would consider it. Well, in the new MUTCD, the guidance is different. And there is more emphasis on roadway characteristics and crash histories. There's also a lot of updates regarding signal warrants and how a traffic signal gets put in. Now it's a guidance statement, not a standard. And there's some new information about rectangular rapid flashing beacons. If you ever see the acronym RRFB related to traffic control, that is your beacon like you see here in the picture on the slide. There are new advanced sign placement tables with spacing distances. There's new signs for bicycle facilities and some new language regarding the EV charging stations and all kinds of additional information, and some information about engineering judgment that we will get into a bit here in our presentation. If you want to look up the new MUTCD, you can do that. And we go to an FHWA website, and this is a screenshot of that site, and it will have all of the different chapters shown, and you would just scroll down. And so this gives you that link, or you can quickly throw into a search engine, FHWA MUTCD 11th edition. The thing that I want to call your attention to, if you scroll down to the bottom of this screen, you also will see listed list of known errors. This is where the parallel between the biblical representation and the MUTCD part ways, because there aren't errors in the other. But in the MUTCD, there are a list of known errors. So if you're looking for something in all of the chapters through the 9 parts that are in the MUTCD, you also want to look in the list of known errors, because this is a document that's being updated now, and they have noted the errors in this section. And so that would be important for you to look at as well. There are 9 parts to the MUTCD, over 1,100 pages. And you'll notice here, these are the page numbers for each different part. And of course, when we're talking about traffic control, signs is going to have the most with 498 pages. And then temporary traffic control, which plays a huge part in anybody that is trying to make sure that the traffic control is appropriate on a roadway throughout the state and the nation. And then the last thing that I would point out to you as a general comment, the purpose of the MUTCD is pretty specific. It is a law. There are a bunch of things that it is specific about and there are things that it is not about. So it's the law, it's the national standard, it gives technical guidance, but it is not geometric design. They are not telling you how to provide geometric design, to give countermeasures and provide strategy. You have to remember this is something, a document that you're going to look at to determine, hey, do I have this right? But not how to do design work specifically. Now I'm going to turn part one over to Fo.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Suzanne. Uh, Thank you for the introduction. So we are going to be covering a lot of information today. Those 9 parts are going to have to be, we're going to have to go a little bit quick on some sections of it, mainly because there is just enough, and there isn't enough time to cover all of that in 1 hour. So, but please, if you have any questions, put it in the chat, and we can definitely, even if we can't get to it today, we can definitely get to it after that. The way we're going to do it is we're going to cover each part, and we will cover the main changes for those parts. So first, part 1, general. The biggest change right now is the target compliance dates for those items right now in this table. These target compliance dates established by FHWA for key provisions. So those include the weight limit signs, low clearance signs, pavement marking, retroreflectivity, and grade crossing treatments. So making sure that all of your projects are in compliance with these scheduled deadlines are very important for you. And we will go into more details on each of those items and what the compliance dates for them. First, we have MUTCD introduces the new standards for the weight limit signs, those including emergency vehicle weight limits and requirements for advance notice of restrictions. So the compliance date for these changes is January 2029. These updates definitely help that all the weight restrictions are clearly communicated and enforced. One of the items that we saw that is going to be a little bit of extra work on all the cities and the states is providing those weight limit signs in advance of those bridges and the weight limit locations. So anytime you have an intersection that you're turning on to a weight limit restriction road, you have to provide a weight limit advance sign for all of those. This is going to be kind of I wouldn't say a problem, but it's going to be a lot of work for counties that have quite a bit of bridges and quite a bit of weight limit signs. So the compliance date for that is January 29, and all those 5-year compliance dates, it's based off of when the MUTCD was released of 2024. Next, we have the low clearance signs. So the advanced low clearance signs are now mandatory. That's another item that we have to provide an advanced signs. There's new lane specific low clearance signs, the W12-2B. These are recommended where clearance varies for any clearance that varies, and you have to provide your advanced clearance signs for the lowest point. These compliance dates, it's also January 29th, 2029, and obviously these changes are designed to reduce the risk of vehicle strikes and help vehicles make a better decision as they're turning into these routes. Pavement mark and retroreflectivity. This has a very quick compliance date. So less than a year and a half since the release of the new MUTCD, but obviously it's less than a year for us right now, September 2026. Section 38-05 sets a new minimum retroreflectivity standards for pavement markings, and that is 50 millicandela per meter squared per lux. Took me a lot to learn that, but for roads over 35 miles per hour, and 100 MCD meter squared per lux for roads over 70 miles per hour. And these only applies for center lines, lane lines, and edge lines. So do not apply for stop lines or any transverse lines. The compliance is required by September 26, and there are some exceptions, including locations where the lighting is provided, low ADT, and certain markings, and all of that is in section 3A-05. Low ground clearance grade crossing signs. These are new guidance addresses low ground clearance grade crossings. So the ward message warning signs and selective exclusion regulatory signs should be used in addition to or instead of the W10-5 sign. And you also, this is a big change, is you have to provide a sign detour to guide vehicles to an alternate crossing. So anywhere you have a hang-up situation where vehicles can get hang up on the rail crossings, you have to provide a detour sign for an alternate route where they're able to cross the rail without that hang-up, the low ground situation. And also, this is a 5-year compliance date of January 2029. Signals at near and grade crossings. This has a 10-year compliance date. So we have a little bit more time, but it introduces this new sections 8D09 and 8D12. Introduces requirements for appropriate treatments at grade crossings. So that including preemption, movement prohibition, pre-signals, and queue cutter signals. Agencies must assess and determine appropriate treatments for the long-term compliance. And in Part 8, and this is something new and big in the new MUTCD, you will hear about it a lot, is the diagnostic team. They have made an emphasis on creating a diagnostic team for any time you are dealing with grade crossings. And so for that, definitely agencies will have to be in compliance within 10 years in January 2034.
Fo,
Yep.
one thing we might mention, if you guys are sitting here listening to this, you might go, okay, why does city staff and elected officials care about these changes to the MUTCD? Fo has just given you all of these compliance dates. And the important part about this is if an accident occurs and traffic control is not correct, then the city could be found to be at fault. And so you want to make sure that you are meeting all of your compliance dates just to keep your city out of liability issues. And the second reason is because all of these changes are going to impact your budget. He talked about like the advance notice on bridge limits or something. I mean, that's going to be some additional signs that gets added to the requirements. And for every sign, you're looking $60 to $100 that gets added. But one sign may not be any big deal, but as you start looking at all these additional requirements or changes and things that you have to make, that definitely will have an impact to your budget. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we did these presentations a few months ago and we told everybody there isn't MUTCD police that's, driving around making sure everything is to requirement. But the MUTCD is a document really just to prevent you from getting sued by the end of the day, because lawyers are going to find any way possible that they can fault somebody else in accidents and crashes. So, and that's why these compliance dates for those 6 items that we covered are very important, that because those have been established by FHWA with a compliance date. All the other changes, there isn't a set date for it, but it is definitely, once the state adopts it in January, it will become a standard, and then you'll have to make sure anything that's being designed following that date will have to follow the new standard.
It's kind of like the ADA standards that you think about, okay, if we're going to make a change to this building, then we have to make it ADA accessible. And so if you're going to have a change to something on one of your roadways, then at that point, when you start making changes, then you have to bring it up to the current MUTCD standards for that area of roadway.
Correct. Yeah. And, for the cities that have their own standards as well, if you have a cycle of updating your standards every 2 to 3 years, and that cycle is coming up, this is the time to look at those 2 changes in the MUTCD to make sure your standards are up to date with the new guidance. Okay. Now, section 1D03. So this is a kind of a big change, guidance pertaining to engineering judgment. So now it's the definition, a decision to use a particular device at a particular location should be made based on either an engineering study or the application of an engineering judgment by an engineer. They added that someone under, this is the change is they added someone under the direct supervision of an engineer or other individual as duly authorized by state law to engage in this practice of engineering. So now it's MUTCD is allowing non-engineer to make those decisions as long as they're under the supervision of an engineer. So, you know, superintendents, street maintenance folks can make those decisions as long as they bring it up to an engineer and the engineer can approve it. So this is good because you take out the need of engineer at all of those decisions. Other folks can make those determination as long as it's been approved by the engineer. And again, you have to have the supervision of an engineer for that. So that was part one. Part one, really, those are the big changes for it. And now we're going to move on to part two. And part two covers all the signs. And there are quite a few changes that we're going to cover. Again, we're going a little bit too quick, and we apologize about that, but we're definitely short, not enough time to cover everything. Yeah. So if you have any questions from part one, feel free to add it to the chat right now, and either Suzanne or later on, we can answer those questions. So this is something to bring up. This is not a new standard, but the FHWA definitely made sure that this is this information being related to everybody. That all symbol signs must match those shown in the standard highway signs publication. Not a lot of people know about the standard highway signs publication. This is a document that by the FHWA that has all the signs that have been approved by the feds. So making sure that the symbols and colors cannot be modified unless specifically allowed in the MUTCD. So cities can't just go and make their own sign, and just because it looks similar to it, it has to look exactly the same. For example, as you can see, the difference between those two signs, one has just a hat, one doesn't. The horse looks different. The one on the left is not acceptable. The one on the right, it is. And any new symbols or designs must follow the FHWA procedure for experimentation. So there are some procedures which you can find on the FHWA website for experimentation where allow certain signs, but I think there's an application that you have to go through. Yeah, this is the design of signs. So this is section 2A.04. This is just a renumbered section from the 2009 edition. If a standard sign, a symbol, alternative word legends, if a standard sign is a symbol, and alternative word legends are not allowed. So you cannot use words instead of a symbol because if it's a standard sign, it has to remain the same. Where a standard is provided, alternative sign designs or legends are also not permitted. So anytime a sign existed in the standard highway signs manual, you cannot make a sign that is a little bit different than that. This ensures consistency and clarity for all users, road users. So the 2024 edition is actually under construction. It was supposed to be released last year, but there's going back and forth between the feds. So it should be getting released sooner, which will provide a lot more newer signs than the 2004 edition. So it gives more options to cities and counties to use. Section 2A- or Section 2A.04 designs of signs. The pictographs must not contain scanning graphics for conveying information. So QR codes, websites, or any of that, you cannot use it on signs. Especially when representing jurisdictions, the pictographs must be the official designation. So you have to have the official designation of that city, the county, the state to be included as the pictograph. College or university pictographs cannot include representations of programs or athletic mascots. So, if you have a section of the college campus that is the engineering side, and you can't have the engineering symbol or any of that just showing. You have to have the college or the university official pictographs on that.
We talked about this. We've done some of these presentations that are in-person presentations, and we talked about historic district signs and how that applies. And I'm not sure we know exactly whether that's going to be allowed or not. And I'm sure there's a lot of cities that have historic districts with like some sign toppers or street name signs that maybe have a little icon on it for that historic district. So that's something to think about at moving forward.
Correct. And there is something we didn't mention earlier. Now, the MUTCD will be updated every 2 years. That is a law now that they have to update it every 2 years. So it's in all honesty, it's going to be a lot of work because there's going to be we're hoping not a lot of changes. Is just the changes every 2 years will be regarding the errors that they find, or if they get feedback from people regarding stuff like this, where historic stuff. What are we going to do about it? So that's something to keep in mind. Is things are going to be changing constantly every 2 years. There's new standards in section 2A-05 regarding the modification to sign shapes. So obviously you cannot cut any of the edges of any of the diamond shaped signs. They have to be approved. So during traffic control, sometimes you see it on the highway, the diamond shaped signs, the edges are cut off. Unless it's shown on the MUTCD, you cannot just go ahead and do that. Modifying sign shapes. This is big for KDOT. I'm not sure if applies for a lot of the cities, but for KDOT, they use it a lot on on-ramps, off-ramps locations where there's a stop sign and then right behind it, a do not enter sign. They cannot have that anymore because the do not enter sign behind it, it's changing the shape of this stop sign. Because as you're driving to it, you're not seeing the shape of the stop sign. You're seeing what's behind it, which is the square. So this is KDOT right now is trying to make the decision, or what are they going to do with those do not enter signs? Are they going to offset it to the left or to the right, or just push it a little bit behind? So there's going to be quite a bit changes for them on that regard. So exclusive shapes like the crossbuck for grade crossings must not be obstructed by mounting other signs on the back of it. That's another sign definitely it was mentioned in the MUTCD. There's also guidance also prohibits shapes exclusive to stop sign, no passing zone, and railroad advance signage as well. So LEDs are in the MUTCD. This is something new. It was not in the older one. So there's a new section containing information regarding the use of LEDs within the border of a sign. Here's the change. The new standard where LED units are used, the sign shall otherwise comply with the requirements for retro reflection and illumination for nighttime viewing. And neither individual LEDs nor group of LEDs shall be placed within the background area of a sign. So except for stop, yield, do not enter, and wrong way signs. Those are the only ones that are allowed to have LEDs on the border of the sign. So, and then where LEDs are used, obviously the sign still shall comply with the requirements for retro reflection. So this is acceptable. This is not acceptable anymore. This is going to be a big change for quite a bit of cities because this was approved before, or not necessarily approved, but there wasn't anything that says you cannot do it. And now they're coming back and saying you cannot do it. So if you have any school speed limit locations that you have an activation lights, you have to have the lights above it and cannot be within the border of the signs. Section 2B03, this one sets the minimum sizes for regulatory signs on low volume rural roads. This is new too. And then section 2B06 upgrades the prohibition of using yield or stop signs for speed control from guidance to standard. So you cannot just install a yield or a stop sign to control the speed if you have a location that you're experiencing higher speed. An engineering study, which we'll cover later, an engineering study must be completed in order to use those devices now.
The other thing I'd mention about this slide is pay attention to that oversized column. If you look clear over to the right, that oversized column on table 2B1, that becomes important in school signage, and we'll talk about that again.
Correct. At intersections where all approaches are controlled by stop signs, an all-way supplemental plaque must be mounted below each stop sign. Supplemental plaques with numbers of ways. So a two-way, a three-way, they're not permitted. And this is not new from the old MUTCD, but we definitely wanted to bring it up as a good reminder. So you can't have, if you have a two-way stop, you cannot have that two-way, three-way, four-way stop sign plaques anymore. It's either all-way or no plaques at all. And yeah.
I would also mention, think about whenever you have a signal that's down and then you have staff maybe brings out temporary stop signs at it creates a four-way stop. This applies to those temporary signs as well. So that's something to remind your staff about.
There are new guidance for all-way stop control. The section 2B point 12, so it provides new guidance for establishing all-way stop control. Decisions should be based on an engineering study that analyzes crash experience, sight distance, volume, transitions, and other relevant factors. So this section covers a new engineering study and warrants that have to be met in order to convert your two-way stop or three-way stop to an all-way control. 2B point 20, this is regarding in-street and overhead pedestrian and trail crossings. The stop for legend may only be used in states where law requirement requires drivers to stop for pedestrians or bicyclists in a crosswalk. So correct me if I'm wrong, Suzanne, Kansas is not a state that requires a stop for pedestrians, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, it's a yield state. So you cannot use the state law that said the sign that says state law stop for pedestrians in crosswalks. If you prefer to use one of those signs, you can only use the yield one because Kansas is not a stop for pedestrian state. And then if you have those, pedestrian crossing signs must be supplement the W11-2 warning signs with the W16-7P plaques as well. For this one, this table 2C-3, there has been some changes to it. Typically, whenever we design signs for, you have to follow this table regarding the location, how advanced, and there has been some changes to. First of all, they added the 80 mile per hour table at the section at the end, and then 80 and 85 mile per hour sign locations as well. And they also, for the the stop control condition, they changed all the distances for the 20 mile per hour through 85 mile per hour, as well as for 10 mile per hour, 10, there's been the 70 and 75 mile per hour, the distances have changed as well. So that is something to, again, there are no MUTCD police. So, next time you are changing or you have a new project, you will got to make sure that you're following those new distances in table 2C-3. cities with roundabouts. We keep going back and forth on this. The chevron signs are going away again. They just brought it, and now they're going away. So now we have to go back to one-way or the one-way signs, and the plaque underneath it, the yellow plaque, is optional. This is frustrating for everybody because they just changed it, and now we're going back with it. I don't know. Carl Anderson actually had the explanation behind the change, and I don't remember it. Do you remember it, Suzanne? I can't remember what was the reason for the change.
I don't, but the overwhelming majority of the roundabouts today have those chevrons.
Sure.
And, you know, we don't have every answer. This is a huge manual and there's a lot of details to it, and we're not going to have time to cover everything today.
Yeah.
So if you have questions, reach out afterwards. We are going to be providing the slides, so you'll have that to lean back on, and then you can reach out to either Fo or myself or anybody at PEC to get you to the right person, and we can help answer some of these questions. We are not going to get through probably even all the slides we have, so
Yeah.
let's roll on.
Yep. Changeable message signs. Making sure that there are no funny messages have to go. The FHWA said so. So only agencies should avoid humorous, unconventional, or any messages to making sure that the information is being related to the driver. All right. Part 3, markings. There is a new chapter regarding crosswalk markings. There are a few changes within the rest of the chapters, but they dedicated a whole new chapter for crosswalk markings. Section 3B.02, this one introduces warrants for yellow center lines. So there are new warrants for that. And also the no passing zones must be used on approaches to crosswalks. There's new guidance standards addresses the two-way left turn lane markings. So now anywhere that you have a two-way left turn lane markings, you have to end it prior to an intersection and provide a left turn lane or bay for that left turn movement. And then there's also a new for the edge line widths. The increasing edge line width from 4-inch to 6-inch did not become a standard or a guidance. This was a discussion that we were going to go to 6-inch. That did not pass. However, it is a support statement that it can be beneficial counter measurement on all facility types. Okay. Section 3B-07 requires normal width dotted white line markings to separate through lanes from adjacent deceleration or acceleration lanes. This is a discussion regarding, so on major highways, it's a standard for KDOT, but the question is, everybody's asking MUTCD or the feds right now is, do we need it? Because the language does not say you need it at turn lanes, but the graphic is showing it. So people are asking that, and there is no answer for this right now. And we're telling everybody to keep it as is, the way that you're doing things, unless you have, highways. Yield control intersections. New standards clarify that yield lines should not be used where drivers are required to stop, including at stop and trail crossings. If a yield line is used, a yield sign must be present, and there's options for bicycle facilities are also included for any locations where you have bicycle facilities. There is a new option on roads posted speeds at or below 25 miles per hour. You may reduce the word, symbol, and arrow markings by 25%. Crosswalks, chapter 3C, this is the new chapter, and they have defined what crosswalk is, and I'm just going to read it real quick. A marked or an unmarked pedestrian crossing, typically at an intersection connecting designated pedestrian access routes like sidewalk, shoulders, pathway on opposite sides of a roadway, and must meet accessibility standards. They wanted to make sure that has been established for the definition for a crosswalk.
Phil, I might jump in, and there's been a question, and I think this will kind of apply as we're talking through other new items. A question about, like, on the existing roundabouts where you have chevrons, are you required to change those out right now? The answer to that is no, not right now. But if you make a change to anything, if say a sign was hit by somebody, you need to change it at that time as you're doing maintenance. And this applies like on the crosswalks and things, because when you're talking about pavement marking changes, you're updating those typically every year. And so when you put your new down, you need to put down the new MUTCD standard. And when you change out new signs, you need to change them out with new. If there's an accident at that location, then when you put up new, you ought to put up the new MUTCD requirements.
Yep. Crosswalks and traffic signals. There's new guidance for recommends installing crosswalk markings at locations controlled by traffic signals. There's also the engineering judgment statement is now an option for emitting crosswalks. And also the minimum width for marked crosswalks is 6 feet and 8 feet for any for non-intersection crosswalks. So any mid-block crosswalks with speed limits of 40 miles per hour or greater. More crosswalks. So there's new standards requiring curb ramps to be within the extension of crosswalk markings, which typically everybody does it, but they wanted to make sure that's included. High visibility pavement markings, crosswalk pavement markings are to be used with at mid-block crossings. At transverse pavement markings cannot be used at mid-block crossings. You can only use it at stopped, control, or in signalized intersections. Section 3H 0.06 limits the green colored pavement to specific bicycle facilities, those such as bike lanes, extension through intersections, two-stage turn boxes, and as a background for bicycle detector symbols. They also have removed the helmeted by the cyclist pavement marking symbol that was in the previous one. So now you can only use either the bike lane with an arrow or the bicycle with an arrow. So that's a big change. I know in Lawrence, they use the helmeted one everywhere, and now they have to any new project they have to use the new symbols. Part 4, highway traffic signals. All right. So signal warrants are now a guidance rather than standards. So this change, because they wanted to include engineering judgment, should be used in conjunction with the warrants to determine the need for traffic signals. This change, it benefits quite a bit of locations that do not meet all the warrants for a signal, but yet it is beneficial to install a signal. So now they're adding the engineering judgment side to it to be able to install those signals. And then review the new standards in Chapter 4C for details. So Chapter 4C has all the details regarding that. All right, warrant 7. So this warrant 7 regarding all the crash for all the crashes and for crash experience now includes 4 new tables. And you can also, they added language in there that agencies can calibrate the highway safety manual safety performance functions to their own crash data. This improving the local relevance to it. But there are 4 new tables for the crash, for the minimum crashes for warrant 7. And those tables are 4C-2 through 4C-5. All right. Chapter 4D, this is section 4D01, introduces new guidance for covering traffic signal faces with the yellow retroreflective strips. If the cover is placed, it should cover the entire signal face and the back plate. You cannot only cover the signal heads. So the whole signal has to be covered. Signal head. New chapter 4H, bicycle signals, and 4L regarding the RFB. So these chapter addresses the bicycle signals and the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. These devices are now included in the MUTCD reflecting because it's becoming a lot more popular. So they included it in the MUTCD. And there are some graphics to it too as well in those chapters. There is new section regarding the bicycle push buttons. It sets the standards for bicycle push buttons. They must meet the accessibility requirements and be accompanied by appropriate signs explaining their purpose and operation. And there are new signs regarding the bicycle facilities too. There is new figures showing the preferred location for the push button detectors, and there are notes. So I'm not going to go into details, but this new section covers it. It's in section 4L. It covers all the new standards for where to place the push buttons for bicycle and pedestrians as well. Section 4J, there is new standards. If a pedestrian hybrid beacon is installed at or a near intersection with a minor street, a stop sign must be installed for each minor street approach. Bicycle spaces are not permitted at pedestrian hybrid beacons. Section 4S, 0.03, this one introduces new standards for the flashing LED units. They cannot be used within, we talked about that, they cannot be used within the legend or border of a speed limit sign. And the previous exception for school speed limit signs beacons, there was an exception for that in the previous 2009 edition. This one has been removed. That I'll turn it over to Suzanne for part 5.
Okay, part 5 is about traffic control devices for automated vehicles. The key here, this is not a required section, but it's going to give you some guidance. And this is especially important if you want these automated vehicles to operate well in your community, and you have them in your community. We probably, all of us, have one vehicle that is utilizing some type of guidance. And the key here, I'll just let you read through these later. We want to pick up the pace here, is that we're trying to they tried to put down 6-inch wide lines, and that's because these vehicles are following the traffic control, the pavement markings. And so you want to make sure that they can see everything. They want to keep the driver safe. And the key on all of this is uniformity. Every part, it talks about uniformity of the markings, the signals, the traffic control. And this kind of takes us back to our college days, I think, when they told us about do not violate the driver's expectancy. So make everything uniform. And that's coming to play with all of these AVs.
Yeah. All right, we'll jump into part 6, temporary traffic control. This is a big one. There isn't a lot of changes, but there are a lot of new information that have been added. So the chapters have been divided for clarity. So there are new chapters right now. New standards addresses traffic control devices, crash worthiness, and night work. And there are guidance statements have been revised to comply with ADA compliance. Part 6, general. So there's new language emphasizes providing information in usable formats for pedestrians with vision disabilities. Temporary traffic control devices are defined broadly, and sidewalk closure guidance has been revised for ADA compliance. This is a big one. You have to provide during traffic control while you're closing those sidewalks. You have to provide the vocal, and I can't remember, what is it called, Suzanne? It's skipping me right now.
Audible?
The audible, yep, here we go. The audible information, the audible messages, devices on those sidewalk traffic control signs, or while you're closing those sidewalks, you have to provide that. This is a big one, I believe. There's been a talk about it, so this is a big change. Make sure that you're aware of it, and that is section 6A. Guidance on now limits the flag use to emergencies. Flags must be red or fluorescent orange red, at least 24 inches square and securely fastened. The AFADs also must be operated by a flagger within a line of sight. That's another change too. They added a new late merge signing. This is becoming more popular. The late merge operations now introduced with new signs and guidance. And then the term private road is replaced by site roadway. There is positive protection guidance, clarifies the use of barriers for worker safety also. And then eliminated vague and undefined terms such as reasonably safe, and then changed the term private road to the side roadway as well. Section 6M, this is regarding the positive protection and temporary traffic barriers. There is new guidance recommends considering longitudinal traffic barriers and positive protection devices in work zones where workers are at increased risk. There is new standards requiring the sidewalk detour or diversion signs to include an audible information devices. This is to improve the accessibility for all users. Yeah, and this is the for figure 6B-29. And there are eight new typical applications have been added, including 5 for bicycles and 3 for roundabouts too. And these examples definitely are helpful to have set standards for agencies. So, part 7.
Okay, part 7. So this is school traffic areas. And the big key here, I talked about the oversized column on that one table. If you have 4 or more lanes with posted speeds, then you have to be utilizing those much larger signs for any of your school signs. That is guidance in the new document. There is also new information about school area signs and plaques. There is also some new information if you have higher fines in these zones, then you have to have this signage up. It has to show what area you have a higher fine in those school zones. So it has to be posted, and that's new. That is not on the books today. The other thing that I wanted to point out, because these cities are the ones that are hiring typically your adult crossing guards, and the MUTCD speaks about this, and this is supportive language in the MUTCD that talks about your adult crossing guards. They are there for purpose, of course, and they're there so that you can see the kids because these crossing guards are bigger, but it states specifically here in P03, high standards for selection of adult crossing guards are essential because they're responsible for the safety of and the efficient crossing of the school by those school children. So they are expecting you to have a high standard for who you are hiring for those positions. That's probably important in today's job market when you can't get your maintenance employees hired either, but keep that in mind. And then there is some additional standards and guidance. And one thing I wanted to point out to you, this is a change that sets forth these basic principles and prescribed standards for in regard to bicycles. There's new guidance that says in section 7A02 part 3, bicycle use as a mode of transportation as applicable should also be considered if students biking to and from school are not allowed to use the sidewalks along the pedestrian route. So if you have a city code that states specifically that bicycles cannot be on the sidewalk, then you are going to have some traffic control and some bicycle guidance within your vehicular path. So keep that in mind and have your staff be looking at that as well, due to the changes in this new edition.
All right, 2 more parts. Part 8, traffic control for railroad. The biggest change in this one, and there's only, I think we only have like 2 or 3 slides on this, but the biggest change to part 8 is the importance of diagnostic team. They have really emphasized the diagnostic team words in the new changes, making sure that anytime you are making any changes or doing any work around the railroad, you have to include a diagnostic team. This is a big change, I know, for everybody, and unfortunately we have to deal with the railroad, and it's never fun to do that. Yeah. So section 8C02, this is regarding the grade crossing pavement markings. You must be placed in each approach lane. So anytime you have the RXR pavement markings, you have to have it for each approach lane. And also the lane use arrow markings must not be placed between the stop line and the tracks. And that envelope area between your stop bar and your tracks, you cannot have any turn lane pavement markings. And this is for safety, to making sure that people do not turn into the railroad. And I'm guessing somebody somewhere in the United States did it, and now it's a standard. So new guidance. This is section 8C05. There is new guidance regarding the edge lines, lane lines, and center lines. They now should extend up to and across grade crossings. A lot of people, or a lot of cities, or a lot of locations, they stop their pavement markings within that envelope area to avoid having to deal with the railroad and getting their approval in order to do the pavement markings. But now you have to go across the railroad crossing. And at least, another thing is, at least one pair of flashing lights should be provided for each approach lane. So if you have multiple approach lanes, you have to have multiple flashing lights, one per lane. All right, part 9, traffic control for bicycle facilities. There's really table 9A-1. There are new chapters that addresses some of the signs, warning signs, as well as object markers. And there are guide and service signs for bicycle facilities. They added a whole lot of signs for bicycle facilities. Their stop or yield sign must not be installed in conjunction with a bicycle signal face. And this is being covered in chapter 4H as well. So it's being referenced in 2 locations. And mainly this is to make sure that the clarity and the safety for all users, and there's no confusion. The slides just shows visual of the new bicycle facilities as facility signs, and use them. And anytime you have any of those bicycle facilities, you definitely have a lot more options now to use new set of signs for that. This is for there. These are just a few of the new signs related to the bicycle facilities. The R3-7BP, and the bicycles are allowed to use the full lane. This is a new sign as well, and there's been a lot of changes regarding all those bicycle facilities, and this is just a reaction to that, adding quite a bit of new signs to it. So another set of new signs for all your bicycle facilities. With that, we did it.
Yes, sorry. We wanted to leave time for questions, but this stuff is tricky. It's tongue-tying. It's not super exciting, but we did our best. And thank you for listening to us today. And if you have questions, because unless you have your face in this MUTCD every day, it's not just common knowledge, all of this stuff. So give us a call if there's something we can help with. Send us an email, or reach out to somebody that's an engineer that you know, and get some assistance. Thank you for your time.
Oh, Suzanne, you all are fabulous. Fo, there was a couple times I just kind of wanted to hand you a drink of water. I was afraid. You were like, you probably don't talk for a whole hour very long or very often. So we appreciate that very much.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
such a variety of people from cities were included themselves on this today, and we're so glad. And I hadn't even thought about police department folks, but as I looked at who was logged on, we not only had several city attorneys, as well as public works and engineering, city clerks and managers, but we also had a few police folks too. So I think that'll be an even bigger benefit to you doing this after we put the PowerPoint with the recording and send that out to an email to everybody who was registered, because some of you folks might want to share it with some of your police or other folks. This was great as far as the roundabouts, the school crossings. There are a lot of things that many cities, large and small, will be dealing with. So thank you very much. I did ask one last time for questions, and since we have a few minutes, I know some people will start to drop off, but we have a few minutes, and we did get one from the City of Liberal. Will new MUTCD books be sent out to cities? How does that happen? No.
Not anymore, I don't think.
Unfortunately not. No. This is it's going online based only. They're not going to be printing it. I think there are people that are trying to do that. You can buy it online somewhere, but it's not issued by FHWA.
Good to know. Good to know. The next question we have in the chat is there an ordinance that cities should be considering adopting or anything like that?
Well, it depends how your city has treated this in the past. That's a question for your city attorney of how you have handled it in your specific city. And if they don't have an answer, then we would suggest that you reach out to KDOT and they can help you with the appropriate language.
Yeah, that's great. And city clerks, I mean, this is pretty easy for a city clerk to look at the city code and find out, is there something that has been adopted in the past that would have adopted a certain version of the MUTCD or stated some sort of policy guidance saying we will abide by this federal guidance when we can, something like that. So if you can find that in your codes before you take action or determine what action you need to take, that would probably be good.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. And KDOT, right now we're working with them on phase 2 of upgrading all their standards, their sign manuals. So they are planning on rolling that out early January. That's the date right now. We're hoping to have those new standards updated. So be on the lookout for that. I know a lot of people update their standards based off of what KDOT. So there's going to be some changes here and there on those standards for them too.
That's really good to know, folks. So I didn't know that. Probably a lot of the clerks do. But so KDOT in January will actually release information about this.
Correct.
And then go from there. So don't feel like you need to take action immediately. You might just wait for the KDOT guidance. Is that right?
Like
Correct.
they have to adopt the national by January 18th.
Yes.
And what KDOT adopts is relevant to KDOT's highways, or is it relevant to every city as well?
Yes, it's relevant to everything in the state of Kansas.
Correct.
Okay, so whatever KDOT says is what, and they'll probably have a web page about all this. Is that fair?
Yeah, they could have. And I would think that the Bureau of Local Projects will be sending out information because that's who connects with all of the cities, and they would let you know, hey, this has been approved.
Yeah, and I believe there has been a talk about maybe even hosting some kind of updates presentations for cities as well on their new standards. Not set as of yet, but that's another thing. So the KDOT standards are the minimum that everybody has to follow. There are certain cities that have higher standards than, higher minimums than KDOT. So for cities that do not have their own standards, typically we go to the KDOT standards for those design.
Like for instance, we talked about how state law does not say that you have to stop when there's somebody in a crosswalk, but some cities, specifically, I think Lawrence says, yes, that is a city law that you have to. And so it can be more stringent, but it cannot be less.
I got to tell you, that was the most surprising thing for me from this. I did not realize that our state, I mean, if I see people in a crosswalk, I'm stopping. I thought, it's the right thing to do, but I really thought it was the law. But I guess the law is to yield if there's someone there, but not, you don't have to stop.
Correct. Yeah, it's statute 8 dash. I had to look it up too to ensure that 8-1533. And in the language it says it's it says a vehicle shall yield the right of way, slowing down or stopping if needed. So a yield condition is approached. So yeah, there is no stopping required. Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
I tell you what, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it looks like we do not have more questions. I appreciate a couple people sharing in the chat there. For example, the Coffeyville Police Department, they have a traffic safety committee. So that's where they're going to review this in December. And then Marion has some team members who were in the field today. So loving the idea of once we get this sent out to everybody, be thinking about who you can share this with and they can look at and read about on their own time, or sharing it for discussion purposes within your communities, whether it's that multi-departmental group of a traffic committee, traffic safety committee. Maybe that includes some of your school people as well. So great ideas came out today. And again, thank you to Suzanne and Fo. Your time, your talents are both very much appreciated. And thank you to PEC for sponsoring this, because this was truly, a public service announcement, so to speak. I think a lot of people got pieces out of what you talked about that apply to them, or at least we all got sufficiently overwhelmed to know that we'll take a little more study on this, but it was a great introduction to the topic. So thank you all very much. Thank you all for joining, and we appreciate everybody's participation in our local government network. And if you have topic ideas, let me know, because we're always looking for the next hot issue that will affect a lot of cities and a fast and easy way to get the word out to everybody. So thank you all and have a good afternoon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Appreciate you.